Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and today we are talking about striving for success and losing ourselves along the way. And the title of this video is a quote that I heard from Kute Blackson on a podcast. I can't remember exactly which one, but this quote really struck me, and I knew I had to write it down right away and make a video about it. So what did he say that really stuck with me? He said, "You can have the success of the world, but not have yourself." And what does that really mean? It means that you can strive for success and obtain it and no longer recognize the person in the mirror. Or you can reach success and feel more lost than ever. It means that somewhere along the way, we abandon ourselves, our true, authentic selves, in order to reach quote-unquote success. And we live in a world that will always tell us what to do, who to be, how to act, how to be successful. And if you aren't careful, you can take those things on as your own truth. And you can strive for those things at the expense of your own authenticity. So we can conform, we can change how we act, how we talk, what we believe, and we can reach for goals that aren't even really our own. And in doing so, we just pile on layers and layers of inauthenticity. This is what it felt like for me, at least. It felt like putting on a costume that was dictated by everyone else. And it was like becoming a character in a play. And the director wasn't me. The director was society or the people in my life who I had taken on their beliefs rather than looking inward to understand, what do I really believe? What do I really want? What does success look like for me? And it's really natural for humans to focus on these qualities of ourselves that we feel we lack. And we also focus on, how can I fix those things? Or how can I become that thing in order to be successful or reach a place of fulfillment? So it looks like, oh, I just need to fix this one last thing, or fix that, or be this, or learn that, and then I will be complete, or I'll have reached this place of success. And that's just our natural tendency, and that's something that's important to just realize, that that's where we're naturally going to be drawn into what we perceive that we lack. Like, oh, that person over there is more charismatic or more charming, and that's why they have the success that I want. I just need to be more of that. I was also recently suggested a video by the channel Accepting the Universe, where he talks about taking the rocks out of your pockets. And it's really a similar concept to what I'm talking about here. He discusses how we take on the beliefs of others, and those things become the burdens and the weights and the rocks in our pockets that weigh us down. And another concept in that video is thinking about these ancient masterpiece sculptures that are created not by piling on more things, but they're actually created by slowly chiseling away everything that doesn't belong on that final masterpiece. So you start with a solid slab of rock and you chip away everything that is not the final authentic expression of that masterpiece. And when I think about that, it really tells me that our true selves aren't created by becoming more, adding more, doing more. They're actually created by removing everything that isn't needed, that isn't true to us. And for me personally, I can relate to the idea of rocks in your pocket, but for my experience, it was really more of a mask that I was wearing or a costume that I had put on. And I just needed to take off that mask and stop this inauthentic behavior. And in doing so, I would reveal my true self. I would take those rocks out of my pocket. So maybe you can take a look at your own life and look at where you reach for goals that don't necessarily have a personal meaning in your life. Or maybe you have some areas where you're acting in a way that doesn't feel true to yourself because you've picked up a belief that you need to act that way in order to be successful, maybe. And I can give an example from my own life. If I look back on my school years and my 20s, I can see that, well-meaning people in my life told me what to do. They told me just go to school, get good grades, go to university and get a degree. And that degree will basically take care of you. You'll be set for life. All you need to do is just get that degree. And I really took on that belief as my own, and I made that my own goal in life. So I took on that belief as my own, and I decided, okay, that's my next step. I'm going to university. And then I reached the next decision point, which was, well, what do I take at university? And of course, at the time I was told, well, you're good at math and science. You'd do really well in engineering. And I was like, okay, I can get behind that. And on top of that, when I had shared my own personal belief at the time, I had this idea that maybe I was interested in graphic design. And I shared this with an adult in my life at the time. It's like a teacher or something like that. And basically they said, if you get a graphic design degree, you will never make any money. And so that's kind of a scary thing to hear at that age. And so I took that on as my belief as well. I took on all of these beliefs. Okay, go to university. Got it. You're good at math and science. That means you should go into engineering. Okay. And if you go into graphic design, you'll never make any money. Okay, I don't want that. So I guess my beliefs are that, I want to be successful. I want to do well in life. And that means I'm going to go to university and get an engineering degree. That's kind of how everything can shake out when you're taking on the beliefs of others. And so I did all those things, and from there I got the corporate job and worked my way up for 10 years, and I had the success of the world. That's what the quote says, right? You can have the success of the world. I got there, and then I found myself 10 years later feeling deeply unhappy, lost, disconnected from myself, and ready for change. And so that's exactly what happened. I found the success of the world, and I didn't have myself when I got there. I did not have my authenticity. I felt like I had gone off track. And for me, it was because I had covered myself in these layers of beliefs that led to behaviors that weren't authentic to myself. And I was trying to play this part of someone who was, following the right path in life, and someone who was on the road to success, and someone who would do okay, And I did all those things, and then I just found myself so lost in my late 20s. And because I was playing a part and I wasn't just being myself, it's not surprising that I didn't feel like I excelled at playing that part. And I felt like an imposter at times, and I felt like I looked at everyone else and they just seemed so sure of themselves and they just knew who they were, and I didn't. And I felt like I just always had to improve a little bit to fit into my role better. Like, to be a better engineer, I just needed to be a little bit more logical, like as logical as my coworkers seemed, or I needed to be more process oriented, or I just needed to be more detail oriented, or I just needed to get better at project management because that's the road I was kind of heading down. And all of these things just pulled me further and further away from my natural inclinations and my natural strengths. Instead, I was trying to improve my weaknesses, or I was not even necessarily weaknesses. Some of these things weren't weaknesses, but I just felt like I wasn't doing it as well as the person next to me. And so this inauthentic behavior, wearing these layers of who you are not, your not self, it's tiring, it's exhausting, it's confusing, and it just continuously pulls you away from who you really are. So when you look at your own life, if you're feeling lost, dissatisfied, frustrated, confused, then it's time to examine what beliefs led to you being here in life. And is it time to let those beliefs go? Is it time to reevaluate? And what behaviors no longer serve you? Where do you feel inauthentic? Where do you feel that friction or that resistance when you're trying to behave in a certain way and it just does not flow? And where do you just feel tired of the burden in your life? Like, where do you feel that there's this heavy weight that you just wish you could put down and just stop doing whatever that is? Can you find a way to give yourself that permission to put down that heavy weight? So how can you start to step into your authenticity and start to focus on feeding your strengths and your natural inclinations rather than constantly striving to reach someone else's ideal? And this is really where you start. If you feel like you're in a similar boat where you've found success and lost yourself along the way, it's time to examine what are the layers that you've piled on to yourself along the way. Where are you behaving inauthentically? Where do you need to change something so that it feels like it flows, rather than trying to paddle upstream? Where could it just flow and you can just put down that burden and step into your true self? So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you some food for thought and perhaps inspires some positive changes in your life. And if you did enjoy the video, I would appreciate if you could give it a thumbs up. And if you're into this type of content, then consider subscribing for weekly videos. And with that, I will see you next week.